So thank you guys so much. I always tell people, yeah, I know I have those degrees, but what God has done, He just credentialed my experience. And I think that as we go through this road back to you and you see that everybody has a journey, and you have to take the time to find your journey. And sometimes we get on other people's path and out of sync with where we're supposed to be, that we get lost and we get caught up in just what happens in everyday life of just living. And so my journey didn't start here. We're going to watch my TED Talk, and it's called Can We End the Culture of Abandonment? And as you see it, is that I was a young lady. I don't know my parents. And so having to navigate from being raised in 4 different homes and not understanding, not ever calling anybody mom until I was in the 7th grade and looking for somebody just to love me, I recognized it wasn't that nobody didn't love me. I didn't love myself. So I had to reclaim myself. And being in corporate, I'm from East Texas, raised in Tyler, but I moved here to go to North Texas, got my accounting degree from North Texas. I have my MBA from the University of Dallas, because at UPS, in order to be promoted into management, you had to make sure you had the right credentials. So not only was I'm also in business, so that makes it makes me well-rounded. And I think when you're well-rounded, because God wanted me to go get my master's in theology from DBU, just so I didn't put people back in bondage. Because sometimes we take the scripture and we misapply the scriptures. And so seeing how He worked with me and He used me and used my story to be able to see that there is life in authenticity and there's life in truth when you're transparent. You don't have to share everything, but you do have to share enough to be a witness to His kingdom. And then in the process of that, after 30 years at UPS, they did a transformation. And I was with my whole group. I was in the tax department doing tax. Can you imagine me with all this energy trying to close books and balance the budget every month? It was tough. It was totally tough. But then in that process of that, I knew I had 4 years to retire at UPS. And I'm only 53 now. But I didn't make it, and I knew that I'd already started school, and I knew that if I got a chance to go all the way through retirement, by 2025, I would have my license or be able to have my master's in becoming a licensed professional counselor. Well, so God would have it His own way and do His own thing. And I remember when they told me that we were all going to be displaced, it was a necessary ending. If you haven't read that book by Townsend, everybody, you have to know that some relationships have necessary endings. But the one that you have to reclaim all the time is to yourself. The highest form of abandonment is suicide. And if you know all the mental illness and things that are happening right now in the world, everybody's going through a mental space. Nobody's checking in with themselves. Nobody's asking themselves, are you okay? It is not okay to be okay and you not tell someone that you're not okay. You have to raise your hand and say, look, I'm having some issues and I'm having some concerns. And so going through that journey, and I remember God was telling me, so I started out getting my LPC. But then if you don't know anything about counseling, in order to be a licensed counselor in the state of Texas, you have to have master's degrees. So not only did I get one, but I started tonight with my class getting my last, the LMFT then, and I finished that one in August. So He did it 3 years ahead of schedule. And then not only did He do that, but He changed the laws to meet my ordinance and my codifications when I was praying to Him, very specific about what I want. And it was that journey back to me. Oh, can we play the talk? Okay, I'm sorry. That's what I was waiting on. That's why I was just talking. I'm sorry. Yeah. It was so funny when she's getting it pulled up that I worked in accounting, right? So you know anybody that handles the budget, and you're going to make sure every number's balanced and you're not going to be over budget. But they knew when Monica was coming. But I also was a conduit for human resources, like the people engagement, because I am that people person, and I think there is a win in everybody. Everybody has a yes. You just have to ask them what that yes is. And sometimes we put our experience on other people without even asking them what their experience is. Oh, you know what? You may have to go to YouTube. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You would think, or go to TED.com. And so when I did the TED Talk at UPS, Of course, we were working with the TED, the actual company. When I finished my TED talk, the management committee, which was all there, and they all knew who I was. So that's the thing. When you have this journey, you can talk to the janitor and you can talk to the CEO. It doesn't matter about title. What it matters is what are you doing with what he's already given you? And how are you navigating that in the space you're in? So this year, I applied for Frisco leadership. And the first year I got in. And I just didn't understand. I've been in Frisco for 16 years. And now I'm finally getting engaged in Frisco. And so, but I think everything has a timing to it. And you have to know the timing. But for so long, I looked at what everyone said about me that I was not on my own pace. I was on everybody else's pace. Because I could be intimidating, is what people would tell me. It wasn't that I was just intimidating. That's just my passion and my zeal for my destiny. And you have to recognize who you are. And I do recognize that. There, right, okay. Oh, you see it right there, the second one in the purple? My favorite color? Yes, ma'am. You know that's royalty, right? And so while they're getting the audio, when I wrote this down on my vision statement, I wrote this down September the 15th, 2014. This stage that I'm standing on is the exact date, 2 years later, September the 15th, 2016. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I just knew if I was very specific, he would allow me to get there.
What was your reason for wanting to do a TED Talk?
You know, in business and motivating people, and I always thought I had an ideal that was worth sharing. And wait till you see this ideal, and nobody really talks about all the money that's on general ledgers that nobody wants to claim.
He looked great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's so amazing you say that, because when you look at me, if you look at this scar here, I have 8 screws in 4 places in my neck. The bone out of my hip holds my neck together. I fell 18 feet off a bridge, landed on my back and didn't break a bone. I've had brain surgery. There was a mass at the bottom of my cerebrum, and that mass had been blocking the cerebral fluid to my brain for at least 3.5 years. Going on as normal. When I was in the 1st grade, and I'm still kind of biased toward brownies. I don't eat brownies at all, but I was a brownie. I got ran over on school campus, drug 100 feet, and wasn't able to go back to school. It happened in October to that next year, because I had internal bleeds and there was no skin on my face. I got ran over by a car on school campus in Chapel Hill, Texas, when I was in the 1st grade in my brownie suit. And so if you think about when you see me, that's why you got to know what your destiny is. You don't see the residue of any of the things I just told you. You got to have the zeal for what your call and what your place is and who are you assigned to. Everybody has an assignment. And sometimes we get in the way of somebody else's lane. We're looking at what they're showing us on the high reels, on the highlight reels. We're not looking on the internal side of what's happening. And so for me, having to navigate as a young lady who doesn't know her mother. My mother got killed when I was 1 year old by at that time we thought it was my dad. Well, he's not my father, so I don't know my father either. But it was my sister mother who killed my mother on my mother's 21st birthday. So she died when I was 1 and she was 21. The last time I was domestically abused, my daughter was 1 and I was 21, and that was the trajectory change to where I needed to learn how to reclaim Monica. Teeth had been knocked out 3 times. But when you don't love yourself and when you don't know who you are, you stand in that place and anything that's love is acceptable love. Because I'd never been hugged as a kid, so I didn't know how to navigate what love was or what the intensity of what it is for somebody to say, Monica, you're special. My first birthday party, I was 35 years old. My husband, we had it right where we actually have a home in Little Elm. We had it. Oh, okay, let me get on.
And there she is.
Yeah, I'm a big personality.
sit with you? Okay, thank you.
I work as a manager for unclaimed funds. That means that my job is to connect abandoned monies to its rightful owner. Believe it or not, every major company has one of me. Unclaimed cash comes from a variety of sources: abandoned checking and savings accounts, unclaimed wages, IRS refunds not delivered, credit balances, stock holdings, unclaimed insurance payouts, and forgotten pension benefits, just to name a few. That's roughly $186 per U.S. resident sitting on general ledgers for state and federal agencies and other organizations. That's $58 billion of unclaimed cash and benefits. I'm asking you, look to your left and then to your right. Is it possible that some of you could be guilty of not claiming your abandoned property money? You'll think I've had the easiest job in the world. Who doesn't want their money back? Oh, you'll be surprised. I pretty much had to beg, fight, push, cajole just to get people to take their monies back. Oh, I know it sounds crazy, and after years of chasing unclaimed owners, it still sounds crazy to me too. But really my job is just to get people to understand that it's worth their time and effort to claim the monies that I have waiting for them. Abandonment of a resource that society places great value on is difficult to comprehend, much less explain. People turn down resources for a variety of reasons. They don't want to go through the process. It's messy, it's complicated, it's not worth the effort. It takes time, energy, and willingness. But these are all symptoms of the same truth. And we live in a throwaway culture. And it's not just funds that are thrown away. We on a regular abandon not only our own funds, but other people and ultimately ourselves. There's a reason why I love my job. Oh, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about connecting unclaimed property to people because I understand what it means to be unclaimed. You see, I never knew my real father, and my mother took a lover when I was only 1 year old, and that man's girlfriend murdered her. As a result, I was abandoned. I was moved from one family to the next, and eventually I went to live with family friends. But I wasn't claiming those places either. Instead, I endured sexual, domestic, and psychological abuse. Nobody wanted me. And like other people, I acted out what I learned, and I abandoned myself. Just like funds, all this abandonment adds up. We as a culture, we struggle with claiming the homeless, the mentally ill, the veterans, the refugees, and even the climate crisis that's taking place on the planet itself. It's bad enough we don't want to be bothered, but we're doing it at an unsustainable rate. And it's not just adults who sometimes feel alone and abandoned. Unfortunately, it is estimated that 140 million children worldwide who are abandoned and unclaimed, living on hundreds of city streets around this world, who are left without the security of their mother and their father, and who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Child pornography is a $20 billion industry, and too many abandoned children end up as victims. I believe that child abandonment is the outcome of so many tragic social issues: broken homes, irresponsible mother and father, and the impact of poverty. First, the families, and then the entire social system turn their backs on these children. I am still so moved by the story of the 7-year-old Florida girl by the name of Danielle, who's often referred to as the girl in the window. When authorities rescued her, she weighed 46 pounds, she was malnourished and anemic. Danielle had never been to school, she had never seen her doctor, she had never felt a hug, and she couldn't talk due to severe neglect. That a doctor wrote, the child will be disabled for the rest of her life. And when asked, how could you let this happen? The mother replied, I'm doing the best I can. How is it that we abandon those we say we love? How can a mother neglect her own child? What I've come to realize is that like that mother, like me, she abandoned herself because she was abandoned. I know these are extreme situations, but there are too many children who deserve to want someone to claim them. As an abandoned child, when I started school, I knew society viewed me as a stigma and a stereotype. But nobody asked me what I wanted to become. That's the reason I'm I'm passionate about ensuring young people, especially young girls, understand that they are smart, successful, magnificent, authentic, resourceful, and talented. I started a nonprofit organization called That Girl is Smart because that girl is smart. Our children are our future, and with love and guidance, we can all help reclaim our abandoned children. I know it's not easy claiming small parts of someone else's suffering. It's bad enough to claim our own parts. Maybe we don't want to face the truth, or maybe we can't look inside at what is unclaimed in our own lives without shutting down. We've experienced death, divorce, sickness, abuse, and simply being alone. It's no wonder we don't have the will to reach within and claim our own parts. I can't always do it. Can you? There are people who are willing to kill themselves and to fight to reclaim the lost person within. Suicide is an extreme form of abandonment, and it is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and costs approximately $44 billion annually. And here's a startling statistic. On an average, there are 117 suicides per day in this country. I was almost one of them. I remember as if it was yesterday. On one cool Wednesday morning, I called my guardian and I told her that I was tired of not being loved and I wanted to end my life. And she replied, "Only a fool kills herself." My first thought was, a fool? Oh, she won't get credit for this one. Then I felt angry. And then immediately I took inventory of myself. It wasn't that no one didn't want me. I didn't want me. So how could I ask someone to claim me when I couldn't claim myself? So I started the hard, messy process of getting to know me. It took time, energy, discipline, and perseverance. And when I achieved all those things, I still needed compassion. How can I help others if I couldn't help myself? And now that I can help myself, how can I not help others? I believe that we can claim our property, claim others on this earth with us, and claim ourselves. A person's value is just like those funds I spend my workday on trying to reunite with its rightful owners. Some people don't even know the funds are there anyway. Some decent funds are so small that it's not worth the time and effort. And some don't believe me anyway if there's any value there. But I know. Each fund matters. Each has worth. And each have the right to be claimed. And when added together, the sum is astonishing. That's the reason why I believe we claim our property, we claim other people, and we claim ourselves. So what if we all made it a personal mission to reach out to ourselves, our family, our loved ones, and those outside our immediate circle, and say, yes, I'll claim that part. I challenge each of you, let's abandon abandonment. Let's make this day a safe place of claiming those who've gone unclaimed, disowned, and tossed aside. What if we could enrich each other just by recognizing each other? What if, through an encounter with you, people could shift from broken to breathtaking? Thank you.
So you kind of see why my mission is to help others reclaim themselves. And I think that when you don't know who you are, you can't help anyone else. Was this road easy? No, it wasn't easy. But was it worth it? Absolutely, it was worth it. You know, I've earned this smile, and I've earned the understanding of what it is to claim ourselves, to understand who we are. Every day I encounter someone who's willing to give up, to lose that person of who they are. So I want to challenge you too as well, that when people walk up to you, you never know their story. You never know what they're going through. Don't prejudge people just based on how you think they are. We should all make it a mission to help others reclaim themselves because we've reclaimed ourselves. And just because we live in an area that has such an influence to it, it doesn't mean there's not people suffering. They're suffering everywhere. In the last 2 years, we all at one point was all on the same level. It didn't matter how much money you had. Didn't matter how many titles you had, nor did it matter how many degrees you had. We all had that one responsibility of really navigating through this space of how can we talk to ourselves. And if you look at some of the statistics, you'll see that marriages, there was a lot of divorces. People chose not to be with one another. They found out they really didn't like their spouse. Or they found out their spouse really didn't like them. Whatever that may be, or didn't like and most of the children moved back home. Like mine. She moved back home. And I've given her her last month is September of this year. I would not be on one of those shows, a 40-year-old living at home with her mother. Because we have a responsibility to talk to each other. Because I know when I walked in this room, you didn't know anything about me. You didn't know that I had been through any of those things, because I don't wear those things. Those were things that happened to me. But I got a chance to choose how I responded to those things. And what I recognize, and so we're so off script, I can just talk without having to go through the presentation, because I think, okay, so roll back to you. Let me get over here so I can see. Oh, but he's still recording. I got to go back. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's that brain of mine. You know, you have this fascinating brain, this brain that works at all times at night and it doesn't get any sleep and is always trying to learn something new. Yeah, like being up. You know how you have your Apple Watch and it asks you, like, it does your sleep studies, right? And for the last 2 days, it only showed I slept 4 hours. That's because my brain is always going. And I recognize that when your brain is always going, that means your body's never resting. And you have to be in a place where you're sleeping. You know, I can only say it's God's grace and goodness that when you find that solution to disengagement, all of this can be applied in a workplace. I was teaching UPS executive committee and UPS's management. I was in management and HR as a finance manager, going out on a special assignment, teaching employee engagement, talking to them about employees. So I know what it is to engage in yourself. You have to have that connection with yourself. You have to ask yourself every morning when you get up. You'll be surprised how many people can't look in the mirror. But what I've learned, though, that when I walk by, the mirror stops for me. Because once you understand who you are, those are just behaviors that are attached to all the things that have happened to you. So having that engagement, knowing the difference between happiness and what other people's opinion is. Monica, you've had a child. I was a teenage mom. You'll never amount to anything. You don't get the right to tell me that. We're all entitled to our own experience. And nobody has the right to place their experience on you without your permission. But you have to own your experience. See, it's not happenstance that I've been in all these environments just by the sake of it. It took me going to Africa to find out who my biblical character is. And most people don't know her. It's Huldah. Huldah. She's one of the 7 most influential prophetess in the Bible. And nobody knows about her. But it was God and me in Africa when they were telling me, Monica, you can't go over to Africa telling people what to do. They're going to hang you up by the tree. But God showed me that's who I am. Huldah was an educator. She was the keeper of the wardrobe's wife for the king, Josiah. And she authenticated the book of Torah. Read about her. She was very bold. She was very direct. They thought she was disrespectful because how she talked to the king. But it wasn't that. She just knew who she was and she knew her assignment. When you're engaged, you know your assignment and you know who you are. It's not about what they think. Who worries about what people think? Everybody should be raising their hand at this time. Because we do. Oh my gosh, how am I going to walk here? What are these people going to say? What are they going to think about me today? You know, right? I'm going to a new environment. Here I am. And I was always the only one in a room in everything that I was in. And I don't want to be seen as the angry black woman. So I had to code switch, and every time I walked into a room. That means I acclimate to what environment that I'm in. And sometimes when you're having to acclimate to so many environments that you're in, you forget who you are. And you forget the journey. If you ever, one of the best code switches I've seen is previous President Barack Obama. If you ever notice that when he's with diplomats and diplomatic dignitaries, he does a handshake, the proper coding, but when he's playing basketball, he does a dap. Watch how you acclimate. Watch how your tone and your voice change when you walk into a certain environment. A lot of times we never become who we're supposed to be because we're always trying to fit into somebody else's group. Maybe you don't belong in that group. Maybe that group is not for you. What's your name? John. Maybe, John, that group is not for you. You create your own group. Create your own table. Create the place you want to be. Stop asking for permission. If it's unethical, illegal, and immoral, don't do it. But if it does all those other things, you can do anything. Nobody can stop you from becoming who you're supposed to be. You're on this journey yourself to do that. You can go to the next one. Visibility, somebody's always watching. I never knew that. You know, I remember now that when I see people and they're beginning to talk to me, oh my gosh, Monica, you have just matured. Well, you didn't understand what was going on with me in the beginning, though, because you just always assumed. You never knew that I was a young lady looking for a mother. I had never been hugged until I was 26 years old. So that's why I had the acceptable love of being in a domestic abuse environment. That's why I'm a CASA advocate, because I understand what those kids are going through. Every child has the right to be claimed, and every child has the right to be loved. It wasn't their decisions. And for years, I was angry at those two parents of mine. But what I recognized, though, that my mother had to die so that I could live. And that's when I knew what it was to forgive. That when I stayed in the lady house who killed my mother, that's the ultimate side of forgiveness in what I thought. But just 2-3 years ago, it was actually using the niches that empowered myself, and I had to do some activity. It was having that crucial conversation with a man whose name I carried for 40 years. Having to release him and tell him that it's okay. He didn't have the capacity to even understand what I had went through. Because when you don't take responsibility for what you're doing to people in their environment, guess what you do? You create more chaos in an environment. And everybody loves chaos. I'm sure you're probably watching some of that housewife stuff and all that other stuff on. All of that is chaos. And if you thrive off chaos, you live off chaos. And chaos attracts to you. So I'm okay with telling you, no, that's okay, I don't want to talk to you. I'm okay telling you that. Because I watch the fruit. So if you really know what a person is doing, watch the fruit. I tell people, don't always quote scriptures to me, because if you hadn't made them applicable to you and told me how you've used them, then you have no fruit. Because I know how to read them. Remember, I got a degree in theology. And when you recognize that, so people was always giving me the scriptures of what I should do. But then I would ask them, well, how did you make it applicable? You telling me to keep my dress down, but what did you do? Then I'm seen as being disrespectful. But this generation now, oh, they just telling us all like it is. They like the transparency. They like you being authentic, and they can tell you when you're not being who you say you are. They love it. And I know sometimes when I walk in the room that I can be intimidating. I remember I had men tell me, Monica, you're just intimidating. But you know, I did come back with a response because I do remember what the word says. And so I replied that, you remember when Jesus came out the tomb? Who did he see first? It was Mary. Where? Because where were the men? And so he said, well, you can't say that to me. I'm just being biblical with you, though. See, what you have to understand, because I still respect men. I respect the hierarchy of marriage. I do respect that. It's the husband, it's the wife, and then it's the children. So I do respect that. And it's so amazing that all of this PowerPoint is like everywhere, but it's all the road. And I'm still watching time, 5 minutes, and I'm still watching time with it. But I think watching the TED Talk and watching, and you can have a copy of this, I'm okay with it. They can have a copy if they want it. Because it has very succinct things that you need to do to find out who you are. Stop asking other people. There are so many mature women in age who still don't know what they are supposed to do on this earth. There are so many men who are mature in age that don't know what to do on this earth. You got to do the hard, complicated work of getting to know you. And it is hard. It takes time, it takes patience, and thank you guys for serving all the things that you go through, just even on the mental capacity. Because your thoughts lead to feelings, and your feelings lead to behavior. We have so many people who have not been diagnosed with adult ADHD, that there's a stigma attached to it. But what people don't understand, though, is that there's a gifted brain that most people won't. You got people who are in so much deep depression that they don't know how to even come out of the windows to look in. That's why I say I always want to live in a glass house. Because there's not anything that we have to hide. You don't have to tell all your stuff, but you got to be a witness to his kingdom. You got to be able to share the word and be able to bend through something so that that fruit can have some lasting impact. I was created to inform, to inspire, with integrity for a lasting impact. One thing I know, that when I do encounter somebody, they will never forget me. You might try to, but you will never forget me. I am contagious. My energy is contagious because I am created by him, and I understand that. So I'm no different than Paul when he was shackled, I can't swim, and if you saw how I tried to do the dance, I'm a black woman with no rhythm. I know, right? And so, but I understand this, though, because with all the circumstances and the things that I had to go through, I recognize that God didn't give me no beat, nor did he give me boobs. So he protected me from doing all the other things that I could be doing. The only thing I tried to smoke, I put some oregano in a paper sack, and I thought that was a joint. And I've never smoked since then. So he takes your life circumstances. I had the right to be on drugs. I had the right to say the woe is me. I had the right to complain. But what I had the ownership to do was the road back to me. I'm no different than you. And so I encourage each of you to take that journey. That's why I love my young women who come and see me. I'm this open person. Take the journey. Take a step back. Get the support of your family if you're having a mental issue or you're having a mental thing. I was there, and no one was there to tell me that it was going to be okay. And in today's time, you need an accountability partner. So remember, she might be Monica who's smart, but just remember, he just credentialed my experience. Thank you.